In this video, we're going to start looking at how to turn our 2D drawings that we worked on last week into 3D drawings. So the first thing we're going to want to do is you're going to open up Solidworks and you're going to choose New Part. Alright, and this is how it opens up. We want to go to our top plane. You right click on that, we'll go normal to it, and then we'll sketch. So as always, I normally like to put in a little bit of some reference lines. So let's mark these in here real quick. Alright. The first part of our sketch that we're going to do is we're going to do the base. And if you remember from the class, we had a square plate that we had a slot cut in and a piece that moved through that. So we'll start out by drawing our square plate. We'll just do a corner rectangle here. Go there. We'll do smart dimensions on this. Let's say 150. And we will make this 100. Alright. So that's our first part of our sketch. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this first part of our sketch and we're going to extrude it. So to do that, we go to Features, and under Features, we have this Extruded Boss Base feature here. So if we select that Extruded Boss Base feature, you can see that this dialog opens up over here, and we kind of tilt over so that we're seeing this in 3D. And basically what this is saying here is we've got this arrow that's going up from our plane, and it's going up 10 millimeters. Now there's a few things that you can do here. You can change the direction you want it to go. So this button changes it so you're going down from the plane. This is going up. You can select a few things here. Some of these don't make any sense because we don't have other bodies drawn right now. But we could select the mid-plane one, which would make sense here. And you can see that on the mid-plane, it's still 10 millimeters extruded, but it's 5 above the plane and 5 below. We're just going to go with blind, and we will make it extrude down. So from there, we'll say 10 millimeters is good. We say check. All right. So this is our base here. Now what we can do is, so if you click on this little blue button here, you can see that this base is associated with this sketch. Now what we want to do is we want to continue drawing some sketches, and we want to do different things to those. So we'll go back to that top plane, we go normal to it again, and we can start drawing again. And so we still have our origin down here. So what we want to do is we want to draw in that slot, and we want to draw a pin that our lever is going to work off of. So to draw in the slot, remember we had the slot tool over here, and I told you we would use this a little bit more. So let's go over here. We don't want to do a straight slot. We'll want to do a 3-point slot. Or actually, let's do a center point slot. I believe that's what we did the last time too. So, and we want our pin to be over here. So let's pick there. And then we can come over to here. And you can see that little white box pops up right there. That tells me that I'm running parallel to my origin line. We don't need to necessarily do that, but let's just keep it clean. We'll pick our first point there. And we'll circle around. There we go. And we'll go up to, say, here. All right, and then our next part is how wide we want that slot to be. So we can change some dimensions in here, but we'll just change them in our smart dimensions. So we say OK. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to determine what our radius is here. So we go smart dimensions, go to our line to here. Looks like we're kind of defaulting right around 105. Let's do 100. We'll bring it in a little bit. And then let's say OK. We'll go smart dimensions, and we will make our slot size here. Let's make that 6. Or not 60, 6. We'll say OK. And then you see that this is all still kind of in blue because this can all be shifted around. So to anchor it, we need to tell it where our endpoints are at. So to do that, we'll go into our smart dimensions again, and we can click here. We'll click on this line, come across, make that 20. And then we can click on this point here, and this line here, and let's make that 20 as well. All right, so those two dimensions are defined. Now, say OK. We're still in blue, so we need to define our dimensions here to here as well. So, or if we need to define our dimensions to this point. So that works as well. So we can go here and we can say smart dimensions. We know that this was going to be 20 because, well, originally. We'll make it 20 again. And then we can go here to here. Oh, hold on a second. Smart dimensions. Point to here. And let's make that 30. All right, now you see everything went into black. So that defined all of our features here. So now the next thing we want to do is we can take this slot here. So we have our sketch 2. We can go into features, and we can go to Extruded Cut. And what that does is if we flip it around, you can see that that cut is going to go, in this case, we're showing it's cutting all the way through, blind, into downwards, because there's our arrow going downwards, and it's going down 10. In this case, I don't want to cut it all the way through. We're just going to do a slot that's not cut all the way through. So let's cut this down to, let's make this 60. And we'll say OK. And when you're looking at these, then some of these make sense. So you could do through all, up to next, up to the vertices, up to a surface, offset from the surface. So a lot of these cuts then make sense when you have multiple bodies that you're dealing with. And as we proceed with the class, we'll go over some of those options, and you can see where they make sense and where they don't make sense. And from there, we can say OK. And just say blind cut. And now when we tip it back, you can see that we've cut a slot into there. So one thing I want to do is I want to go to here to my sketch, and I want to make this visible. And the reason why I want to make that visible is I want to know where this point is right here, because that point's going to be our pivot point for our next part of this drawing. So we'll go to our top plane again. We'll go normal to it. Right click on it. We'll do sketch. And from there, we want to pick our center circle. We'll go to the center here. We'll make a circle. All right. Say OK. Go smart dimensions. Let's pull off of this, and let's give this thing a diameter of 5. And say OK. There we go. We've got a diameter of 5. And you can see it's black because we already defined where that point was at. So we don't have to redefine any of that. All we had to do was define what the diameter is. And now we can go back to features. We can do extruded boss base. And flip around here. You can see that it's extruding up and extruding up 6 right now. Let's make this go up to 10 again. So we'll make this value 10. And we say OK. And there we go. Now you can see that we now have a little pillar that sticks out of there. So this is our first piece. And you'll notice that it looks kind of goofy. You can go up here and you can adjust your how it's drawn. I'm trying to remember where that, oh, there we are, under the screen here. If you put it on perspective, it kind of shifts it around and makes it look red again. Something to do with how its default is when it's drawing. It doesn't really kind of make it a perspective, so so the lines look like they're going to a 0 point in space. So this is our base, and let's go here and we can save this, and we'll go to there and we'll call this week 2. Go to week 2, and we can call it base. And we'll say save. All right. So that's saved there. So now we want to do a new part because we want to do our lever that goes on here. So we'll go to new there. We'll pick part. We say okay. And so we have a few things. We're going to have to maybe jump back and forth a little bit here. So let's go back in here real quick. Go back to our base part. And we'll flip this around and we'll go to sketch 1. And nope, we'll go to sketch 2. What things that we want to pay attention to are our radius here was 100. So we know from the center line of this slot that we have 100 here. We know our pin size is 5 millimeters, and we know our slot size is 6 millimeters and 5 millimeters deep. So we want to keep those things in mind. So if we go to part 2, let's go in here and we can go to any of our planes, but let's just do top plane again. We can go normal to our top plane. We'll start sketching. Now I know I'm going to draw my part here horizontal, so I'm just going to put in a horizontal line as a reference line through. I'll say okay. Say escape. And then we want to draw 2 circles. So that we don't have to center one of these circles out. Well, so we don't have to get measurements for both of them. What I'll do is I'll just do one of them on the origin. So, and then we can do a second circle over here. All right, and we'll say okay. We'll go into Smart Dimensions, and we'll go this point to this point. And we're going to make that 100. And we'll say okay. All right, and then we can go here. We'll make this 150. We can go here. And we'll make this one, let's say 30. 30 looks good there. So we say okay. Now we want to connect these 2 circles together and make this all one solid piece. So if we go here and we draw our 2 lines, I'm going to draw a line there, and we're going to draw a line here. And I'll show you why that we're drawing them off of the circles like that. There's a reason for that. It makes it a little easier for the next step that we're trying to do here. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to create some relationships between these lines. So if we go here and we click on the first line, and then we push Control and we click on this small circle, you get these add relations buttons down here. We want to make this line tangent to that circle. So we say tangent, right? And then it sucks it up and it makes it tangent to that circle. And just like when we were drawing the 3-point circle, that means that if you zoom in really close, you can see that they just kiss each other as they go across that point. So that's what tangent means. All right, and now we want to go and say okay. And then we want to choose this line again. Push Control, choose the circle, and we want to make those tangent. And you can see that it pulled them up and touched them. And so we'll do that for this other line up here. So tangent, and okay, and tangent, and okay. So that connects our lines there. And then we can say okay, and then what we'll do is we'll go to Trim Entities. And in the Trim Entities, we'll just use the Power Trim. Power Trim basically, as long as you're drawing the line through something, it deletes it. So we can go through here and we can delete these little tails. Now we still don't have a solid part. We have 2 solid circles and then these 2 lines. So what we want to do is we want to delete out our lines inside of here too. And as soon as we did that, then we go to a solid part. So here's our solid part here. We say, okay, we're done trimming. And now we want to go to features and we want to extrude our boss base, right? So we're going to make this 3D again. And I'm fine with making it a 10 millimeter piece again. So we'll just say okay to that. All right, so that we know from our first drawing that we have a pin here that's 5 millimeters and it's on the center of this end. And then we have a slot here that's got a 6 millimeter slot over here and it's 5 millimeters deep. So we can go back to our first drawing, or our second drawing, I guess. We can go here and what we'll do is we'll go down to this, we'll go to this sketch and we'll make it visible. That way we'll be able to see where our center points are for our next sketch. And then we can go top plane. We'll go normal to our top plane again. And right click. And we want to choose sketch. So we have a circle here. And this is going to be the hole. This is the part that's going to fit over that pin, right? So if we go to our center point circle, we click on that, we draw. We know that we want to make this circle 5 millimeters in diameter. So we go smart dimensions. And we pull off of this. We say 5 millimeters, right? And then what we want to do with that, we say okay, is we want to make that a hole. So with this sketch, we want to go to features again, and we want to do extruded cut. And by default, our extruded cut's going to go all the way through. Actually, it's cutting down into the surface, so we actually need to turn that around and make it come back up through. So we have it going through there. We say okay. And you see there we cut a hole in there. And then we want to go to our top plane again. We'll go normal to it. Go sketch again. And then on this side, we have a 6 millimeter pin that's going to ride in that slot, right? So with this one, we can go and we can say center point circle. Go on here, center point circle, say okay, go smart dimensions. And we want to make this 6 millimeters. All right. And so we say okay. And then we want to go to features and we want to do extruded boss base. We only want to do 5. Okay. And we want to tip it and make sure that we're going in the right direction. So right now it's going back to what our default was off of this for our cut, which is up, which is not going to do us any good. So we want to flip that around by clicking that button. And you can see it makes that pin that goes down right there. And so we say okay. Right? And here we go. Here's our second piece. Okay? So with that, we want to go up here and we want to say save. And we will save this as our lever. So we'll say save. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to go to new and we click assembly. So we go to our new assembly. It's actually by default it's going to pull in the 2 pieces that we currently have open. So we'll click that and you can bring it over here. And then we'll want to insert a component and we want to bring in our lever. We'll bring this over here. All right, so currently right now, they just kind of float free from each other. So in order to make these work correctly with each other, you have to create some mates. So what that means is we want to, just like where we had our tangents, some relationships with each other, but these are relationships with 3D objects. So the first thing we want to do is we want to tell it that it's going to line up, this hole is going to line up on this shaft here, right? So we can go and we can say we want to make a mate. We'll select this outside diameter there. And we'll select this one, right? And we can say coincidence is going to make them so that they're always together. We don't necessarily want that. We might actually maybe want to make it so this face sits off of this face a little bit. We'll give it a little bit of space there. So we'll go concentric instead. So concentric, it looks like it did the same thing, but I can show you how it's different. We say okay with that. You can see now with concentric, it's on that pin as far as up and down alignment. It's always going to be there. It doesn't look like it because I picked it way far up there. But it's always lined up with that pin. All right, so the next thing we want to do is, let's pull it up a little bit so that we can see those two faces. Let's create a second mate here between this face and this face. And what we want to do is we want to actually give them a space here. So we want to choose this space. Right now it defaulted out to 41, probably just because of the way we brought them in. But let's give it a space of 1 millimeter. Right? And you can see now when we go on there and we can zoom in, we can see a little bit of space in there. All right. And so then finally, what we want to do, say okay to that mating surface. And then finally what we want to do is we want to go and we want to pick, now this might have been a little bit easier to do before we got into there. Let's go. Let's spin this out here so we can see these two faces here. So what we want to do is we want to do mating. And we want to go down to our mechanical mates. I'm going to delete this because that's not the surface we want. We want to go to mechanical mating. And we want to choose slot. And from there, we want to choose this pin. And we want to choose this slot. And so that puts that pin into this slot. And so when we say okay to that, when we go and we move it, you can see that this is now constrained inside of that point. And so there is our finished piece. So we say okay. And you can see here, if we go and let me go into this drawing here for our base, and we'll go to, let's see, that. We can drop down, and then we can hide that, so that drawing doesn't show up as much. And you see there that now this piece, when I swing it back and forth, is constrained to that slot. And because we told it we wanted a 1 millimeter distance between the plate and the lever, we have that constraint there. And this back side is constrained by being concentric. This circle is concentric with this pin. So there is our final piece. Once again, you get this kind of weird distortion. If you go here and you go to perspective, makes it a little bit nicer. Let's see if RealView Graphics will work. RealView Graphics did work. It makes it a little bit prettier, a little cleaner. And there we go. So that is a lever and a slot. Basically what we learned in this one is how to do some extruded cuts, how to do extruded boss bases, and then a few basic relationships between lines in the 2D drawings, as well as some basic mating. This slot mating is a little bit more advanced, but it all kind of runs together as you're putting pieces together. And we will go over more and more of that as the class continues. So this is our final piece for this week. And then I will get an assignment out for you guys, and it will be something similar to this. You'll be able to use similar tools from what we did here to put it together. Thanks.